When was the last time you made a major life decision and felt a quiet, unsettling dissonance afterwards, as if you'd betrayed a part of yourself you can't even name? That feeling, that persistent hum of anxiety or quiet emptiness, isn't a personal failure, it's a psychological signal. Carl Gustav Jung, the pioneering psychiatrist, called the process of answering this signal individuation, the lifelong project of becoming who you truly are. Let's clear something up right now. Choosing yourself, in a Jungian sense, has almost nothing to do with the selfish, look out for number one mantra you see online. We're told it's about self-love first, but Jung reveals it's actually about responsibility to your wholeness. It is a systematic process of integrating the unconscious, not an emotional whim. It requires rigor, honesty, and courage. The modern world often equates choosing yourself with radical self-care or immediate gratification. Jung's vision is far more demanding. It is the journey from living a life dictated by external expectations, what your family, your culture, or even your social media feed tells you success looks like, to a life rooted in your internal, unique reality. This transition is the most transformative work a human being can undertake. In this video, we will deconstruct Jung's framework into a practical, 7-step blueprint for authentic living. You will learn how to map your inner world, integrate your shadow, recalibrate your persona, and use your intuition as a compass. We will move beyond inspirational quotes to a grounded, actionable system. By the end, you will have a clear starting point for moving from a life of performance to a life of profound purpose. So, what are we actually choosing when we choose ourselves? To understand the choice, we must first understand the topography of the inner world, the map of the psyche Jung provided. The key actors in this drama of self-discovery are fourfold. First, there is the ego, the center of your conscious awareness. It is the I you identify with every day, the part that thinks, plans, and executes. The ego is essential for functioning, but it is not the totality of who you are. The second is the persona, the social mask you wear to function in the world. The persona is comprised of the roles you play: the professional, the parent, the friend. It is necessary for social lubricant, but the danger is in gluing it to your face, mistaking the role you play for the totality of who you are. When you live solely through your persona, you are living a borrowed life, performing for an audience that doesn't truly know you. Deeper still lies the shadow. This is perhaps the most misunderstood concept. The shadow is the part of your psyche that contains everything you have disowned or deemed unacceptable. It is the dark side, yes, including anger, envy, or selfishness. But crucially, it also contains the golden shadow, repressed creativity, assertiveness, powerful ambition, or vital energy that you were taught to suppress. Jung issued a famous warning: until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. When your shadow remains unconscious, it doesn't disappear. It projects itself onto the external world. That intense, irrational hatred for a political figure, or the disproportionate judgment you cast upon a colleague, is often a projection of a disowned part of yourself. Your shadow isn't an enemy to be slain. It's a guide you've been refusing to listen to. The ultimate goal of this inner work is the self, the central archetype of wholeness. The self is the organizing principle of the psyche, the totality that includes both the conscious and the unconscious. It guides the entire process of individuation, which is the journey toward becoming a complete human being. As Jung himself put it, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. This isn't about becoming perfect. It is about becoming whole, integrating the light and the dark, the known and the unknown. Understanding this map is the first step. Now, let's plot your course toward the self, starting with the most fundamental question: what do you actually value? Trying to build an authentic life without knowing your core values is like trying to navigate a foreign city without a map. Most of us are living by inherited or imposed values, the values of our parents, our school, or our employer, which is precisely why we feel so deeply misaligned. This brings us to step 1, the values and vitality audit. This is your foundation for authenticity. Here is the practical exercise. First, list your top 5 core values. What principles are non-negotiable for you? Is it integrity, freedom, connection, creativity, intellectual rigor? Be honest. These must be values you currently live by, not values you wish you had. Next, for each major domain of your life, your work, your primary relationships, your health, your personal time, honestly rate your current alignment with those values on a scale of 0 to 10. Where are you living in integrity, and where is there a gap? For instance, if freedom is a core value but your work alignment is a 2, that gap is the source of your internal friction. Your first action step is to identify the domain with the lowest score and commit to one small, concrete shift you can make this week to close that gap. The goal is not to overhaul everything at once, but to initiate a conscious, value-driven realignment. This audit establishes a baseline of internal truth. With this new clarity on your values, you'll start noticing where you've been saying yes when your soul meant no. This leads us directly into the territory of the shadow, the repository of those suppressed desires and vital energies. Step 2 is shadow work. Integration, not exorcism. What if the parts of yourself you're most ashamed of are actually hidden sources of power? Integrating your shadow doesn't mean acting out every dark impulse. It means bringing conscious awareness to these disowned parts so they can transform from obstacles into sources of energy. When the shadow is unconscious, it controls you. When it is conscious, you control how its energy is used. A powerful way to begin is to track your projections. Notice when you have an intensely negative or judgmental reaction to someone else. If you find yourself constantly criticizing others for being lazy, perhaps you are repressing your own need for rest or your own fear of failure that manifests as hyperproductivity. That irritation is often a mirror, showing you a trait within your own shadow. When you feel triggered, pause and ask a simple question. What is it about this person's behavior that I find so unacceptable? Often, it is a quality you have repressed within yourself. Another critical practice is deep shadow journaling or active imagination. When a strong, disproportionate emotion surfaces, a burst of jealousy, rage, or overwhelming sadness, do not suppress it. Instead, write it down and dialogue with it. Ask, what need or fear is beneath this reaction? And how might this disowned quality, if expressed consciously and maturely, actually serve me? For example, the repressed rage might be transformed into assertive boundary setting. The repressed ambition might become the fuel for a creative project you've avoided. The goal is to reclaim that vital energy and integrate it into a more robust ego structure. Integrating the shadow transforms your inner world. But to relate authentically to others, you first need to manage your social self, your persona. This is step 3, the persona and the art of the boundary. Think about the different versions of you at work, with family, with friends. Which one is real? The persona is a necessary tool, but the problem arises when the persona becomes rigid and replaces the self. We see this constantly in modern society, where people sacrifice their health, their time, and their true desires to maintain a perfect image, the perfect employee, the perfect partner, the perfect online presence. This is persona inflation. Choosing yourself means setting boundaries. Jungian boundaries are not walls that shut people out, but bridges that lead to healthier and more authentic relationships. Saying no to what harms your inner equilibrium is saying yes to the part of you that can show up fully for the right people. This is a profound act of self-respect. Research in psychology consistently links healthy boundaries to better well-being and relationship satisfaction. Practically, this involves moving from reactive boundaries, only setting limits after you've been hurt, to proactive boundaries. Identify the areas where you consistently feel drained or disrespected. Then, calmly and clearly communicate your needs. For example, instead of enduring 2 hours of draining conversation, you might proactively state, I only have 30 minutes for this discussion today, but I look forward to catching up. This creates an agreement that honors both you and the other person, safeguarding your energy and protecting your emerging sense of self. As you loosen your grip on the persona and become more honest about your energy, you'll need a new source of guidance to replace external validation. This is where your most misunderstood psychological function comes in. Step 4 is about listening to your intuition without the noise. Intuition isn't a mystical crystal ball or a vague hope. In Jung's system, outlined in his work, Psychological Types, the psyche operates using 4 primary functions: thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. Intuition is a perceptive function that sees patterns, possibilities, and potential futures beyond the immediate facts presented by sensation. It is the inner knowing that bypasses rational logic. But how do you distinguish a genuine intuitive hit from a fear-based prediction or simple wishful thinking? The key is a balanced practice. Jung warned that intuition must be tempered by the other functions, especially thinking and sensation, to remain grounded. The first step is creating space for the intuitive voice to emerge. This means silencing the incessant noise of external demands and internal criticism. Practices like meditation, focused walking, or simple moments of stillness are vital. When a decision arises, pair your gut feeling with a moment of reflection. Ask, what is my intuition saying? Then, crucially, ask, what evidence supports or challenges this feeling? Keep a simple hunch journal. Write down your intuitive feelings, a sudden certainty about a job change, a strong warning about a new acquaintance, and then revisit them after a few days with a cooler head. See which ones consistently held up and which were merely anxiety in disguise. Over time, you'll learn the unique texture of your own intuitive voice, recognizing its calm, authoritative nature versus the frantic, urgent tone of fear. When you start trusting this inner voice, you might start noticing strange coincidences, moments that feel too perfectly timed to be random, as if the universe is responding to your inner shift. This leads to step 5, Decoding synchronicity, meaning without magic. Jung formally explored this concept in his 1952 work, Synchronicity, and a causal connecting principle. He defined it as the occurrence of meaningful coincidences that are not causally connected. His classic example involved a patient who was stuck in a highly rational worldview, recounting a dream about a golden scarab. During their session, a real insect, a rose chafer beetle that closely resembled a scarab, tapped at the window. The striking meaningfulness of this event helped break her rigid, rationalistic perspective, allowing therapeutic progress. The healthy framing of synchronicity is this. It isn't proof of a force bending reality for you, but rather a profound lens on meaning. As you live more authentically, your attention shifts. You become aligned with your deepest purpose, and you begin to notice opportunities and connections that were always there, but now resonate with your new inner alignment. The external world starts mirroring your internal state. If you are internally ready for a new career, the right contact seems to appear effortlessly. If you commit to wholeness, the necessary book or resource seems to fall into your lap. Synchronicity is the universe's way of confirming that you are on the right path, a non-causal feedback loop of alignment. These moments of meaningful coincidence often show up most clearly in one area, our relationships, which serve as essential psychological mirrors. Step 6 frames relationships as mirrors. Discernment over drastic cuts. Choosing yourself is not a permission slip to burn all your bridges and isolate yourself. Jung viewed our connections with others as reflections of our inner state. The people who irritate us, the people we idealize, and the people we attract all hold clues to our unconscious material. This invites a more nuanced approach than simply cutting people out. Instead of asking, how do I get rid of this person? Ask, what part of myself is this relationship reflecting that I need to integrate? The primary mechanism here is projection. We project our unowned shadow qualities onto others. If you see someone as overly arrogant, you might be projecting your own repressed desire for self-confidence or recognition. For discernment, ask yourself these questions. Which relationships inspire me and bring me peace? Which ones are built on mutual respect versus mutual codependence? Which ones require renegotiated boundaries, a change in the structure of the interaction, rather than a complete rupture? And critically, which relationships are chronically harmful or unsafe and warrant creating distance, ideally with professional support? The goal is to use relationships as a tool for accelerated self-discovery, recognizing that the most challenging connections often reveal the deepest work you need to do on your inner self. To navigate these relational shifts and all the steps we've covered, you need a reliable, moment-to-moment compass that bypasses the rationalizing ego, and you already have one, your body. Step 7 is the somatic signal map, your body's inner compass. Your mind can rationalize almost anything, arguing you should stay in a draining job or an unhealthy relationship, but your body rarely lies. The body is the gateway to the unconscious. It holds unprocessed emotions, suppressed memories, and true intuitive signals that bypass linguistic filters. The practice is simple, but requires consistency. During decisions, big or small, pause and scan your body. Notice the physical sensations. What does an aligned yes feel like? It might be a sense of openness in your chest, calm clarity, a feeling of lightness, or a grounding in your feet. Conversely, what does a protective no feel like? This could be tightness in your stomach, the classic gut feeling, a heavy weight on your shoulders, constriction in your throat, or a sudden, unexplained urge to withdraw. This is not about fabricating a feeling. It is about observing the subtle physical data that is always present. To refine this skill, practice mindful breathing or grounding exercises before making a choice. This lowers the nervous system's background noise, allowing the authentic somatic signal to become clearer. Over time, this somatic awareness becomes a highly refined inner compass, guiding you toward choices that are congruent with your whole being, not just the logical performing ego. Mastering these 7 steps, from auditing your values and integrating your shadow, to setting boundaries, trusting intuition, recognizing synchronicity, discerning relationships, and mapping your somatic signals, gives you a complete system for authentic living. But I must warn you, the path to wholeness is not a straight line, and it is rarely easy. If you try this system and feel a powerful urge to quit, to retreat, and go back to your old ways, that is not a sign of failure. In Jungian psychology, resistance is proof you are moving forward. It is the friction between the old self, which is comfortable in its familiar suffering, and the emerging self, which requires courage and novelty. You will likely experience grief. You may grieve the version of you that kept everyone happy, the perfect persona, or mourn relationships that were built on a role you are now outgrowing. This grief is a natural, necessary part of shedding a skin that no longer fits. You are letting go of the familiar, even if the familiar was painful. You are not alone in feeling this loss. The ego, which has been in charge for so long, will fight the process of individuation because it fears losing control. It will manufacture doubts, deploy procrastination, and remind you of every past failure. Your commitment to choosing yourself must be stronger than the ego's resistance. Remember Jung's insight. The tension between the opposites is the source of all energy and creativity. Lean into the tension. So, how do you measure real progress without falling into the trap of perfectionism? Look for these subtle, yet profound markers. You will observe more consistency between your words and your actions. You will experience less automatic reactivity and more choicefulness under stress. Your boundaries will be clearer and upheld with less guilt. Relationships will either deepen in their honesty or they may peacefully drift if they were founded only on your old persona. Crucially, you will find a steadier baseline of meaning and purpose, even when life is objectively hard. Progress and individuation is cyclical, not linear. Each time you encounter a shadow aspect or a boundary challenge, you move through the cycle with more wisdom, more integration, and less suffering. Choosing yourself through the Jungian lens is this profound, cyclical process of turning inward, integrating what you find, and expressing that wholeness outwardly. This is not a one-time act. It is a daily conversation with your soul, a commitment to truth that transforms not only your life, but the world around you. Jung understood that the fate of the world depends on the quality of the individual. When you become whole, you contribute to the collective wholeness. I want to hear from you. In the comments below, share one thing. Which of these 7 steps, the values audit, shadow work, boundary setting, intuition, synchronicity, relationships as mirrors, or somatic signals, feels most urgent for you to start with today? Your commitment might be the synchronicity someone else needs to see to begin their own journey. If this framework resonated and you want more tools to navigate the deep complexities of the psyche, subscribe to the channel. We break down complex ideas like this every week, giving you the objective, accessible tools to understand yourself on a deeper level. Remember, as Carl Jung taught, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. That journey begins with a single, faithful step. Keep showing up, keep listening, keep integrating what you find. As you do, you'll discover that the greatest power of all lies in the simple, yet profound, decision to be unapologetically